Granted, the NHL is a brutal sport that is more akin to a gladiator fight than a modern sport, but the players are inventive and the playing circumstances are constantly changing, which is why the NHL is continuously revising its laws. Here are NHL players who forced rule changes. The Avery Rule. The Avery Rule was perhaps the most enduring memory Avery left behind in the NHL. During a two-man advantage on the power play in Game 3 of the 2008 Eastern Conference quarterfinals against the New Jersey Devils, Avery turned his back on the play to face and screen Devils goaltender Martin Brodeur. To divert and impede Brodeur's sight, he waved his hands in front of him. The puck was later cleared out of the Devils' zone, but Avery scored on the Rangers' second power play. It's worth noting that Avery spent the first half of the game facing Brodeur and ignoring the puck, with his back to the action. The NHL provided an interpretation of the league's unsportsmanlike conduct rule the next day to cover actions like Avery's, which would now result in a minor penalty. This became known as the Avery Rule informally. During that series, Avery's tactics won him many power plays, and he scored in each of the first 3 games. The series was won by the Rangers in 5 games. Subban and diving. Since the dawn of time, the most despised play, not only in hockey but in all sports, has been diving. Shame. Particularly in hockey. Why, you might ask? Hockey is a gladiator sport. We fight and hit each other. Even the executives are pumped. Although in reality, diving is a pitiful technique that many players have used over the years to get a penalty and go on a power play, but it sometimes looks like this. To be fair, this was most likely a reflex, but he also looked to see if any of his teeth were missing, which is hilarious. But some other plays are like this one. Utterly absurd. What's interesting about that last tape is that Subban single-handedly invented a completely new diving rule because, believe it or not, from 2010 to the present, Subban has led the NHL in diving penalties, and who knows how many more he should have received. It's awful. I actually like Subban, but come on, the dude is a character and he knows it. But here's the thing, the speed of the game is incredibly fast, so it's easy to understand how a ref might perceive something as a penalty when it was actually a dive. And around the year 2013, players were getting ticked off, especially with modern technology that can go back, zoom in, and clearly point out my man Subban, based on reputation and the fact that he has the most diving penalties in the recent decade. However, the league viewed reducing the diving penalty as a difficult task. How can you penalize something that's not visible in real time? So they would choose the public humiliation route, introducing a brand new rule that if a player repeatedly dives, even if it isn't caught in-game, they can go back and watch the game film and hand out fines of $2,000 for the second infraction, $3,000 the next time, with a maximum of $5,000 per dive. But that's not really the point. The real dagger is that there's a press release that basically puts that player on blast to the entire hockey community, aka millions of people, players and fans, in the hopes of causing so much embarrassment that it completely stops the act of diving. And the fact that they've now had the power to go back and assign fines has been huge in stopping the diving epidemic. Cody, Eakin, and major penalties. It was Game 7 of the 2019 NHL playoffs, and the Vegas Golden Knights led the San Jose Sharks 3-0. You thought a 3-goal lead in Game 7 would be enough to get you to the next round, but then this happened. Right off the face-off, Cody Eakin was called for a cross-check, sending Pavelski flying off balance into Vegas forward Paul Stastny, who, on impact, dropped Pavelski down to the ice, unmoving and plainly injured. The refs blew the play dead and gathered to debate what had just happened. When the officials came back from their discussion, they issued Eakin a 5-minute major and a game penalty for cross-checking. The refs judged that the cross-check landed on Pavelski's face because the play happened so quickly, and if that were true, a 5-minute major and a game punishment would make sense. But that's not how it all turned out. The cross-check did not land on his face at all. According to video review, it was simply a bizarre play in which Pavelski lost his balance and crashed headfirst into the ice. Once Pavelski was carried off the ice, the Sharks went on the power play, and because it was a 5-minute major, they received the entire 5 minutes, regardless of how many goals they scored. The Sharks then rallied around their injured captain and capitalized on their power play, scoring 4 times to complete their comeback and seize the lead. Vegas was unable to tie it back up, but they lost in overtime 5-4 in a game they should have won 3-0 due to a 5-minute major that should never have been called. After the game, it was clear to everyone that this was the incorrect call to make on the ice, and the team's trip to the Stanley Cup was ruined. The league recognized the gravity of the situation and decided to adopt a new rule for the following season that would allow referees to review large penalties to determine their severity. If this had been a league rule, Eakin would have received a 2-minute minor, and the Sharks might have gotten 1 goal back, but not 4. That would never have happened. Yoni, Pikkonen, and hybrid icing. Yoni Pikkonen was trying to beat an icing call. Touch icing was a hot topic in the NHL at this point, since it plainly put all of the players in extremely risky circumstances. Take, for example, Pikkonen. He's simply trying to do the right thing for his team and get the puck first before the Capitals, but in order to do so, he has to skate as hard as he can into the boards. The league was practically telling their players that if they want the icing call to go their way, they should run into the wall. Pikkonen received the icing call, but he also lost his career after sliding feet first into the boards and breaking his heel. Because of the speed he picked up to generate the level of force fracturing his heel, his accident was described as a racing car injury. The announcers were correct in bringing up hybrid icing right away. Touch icing has been around for a long time, but that's no excuse to keep it, and replacing it in 2013 was far too late. Because of this occurrence, the NHL stated that they will employ hybrid icing for the 2013-2014 NHL season after the Players Association voted in support of it. It's simply sad that this rule change had to happen so soon after such a devastating career-ending injury. Unlike hybrid icing, it's never too late for you to subscribe to our channel, so click the subscribe button to not miss any of our daily content. Wayne Gretzky and coincidental penalties. Sometimes known as the Gretzky Rule, this was established by the NHL in 1985 as part of a set of 5 new regulations that introduced offsetting penalties into the game. This means that if a coincidental penalty occurred, neither club would lose a player. This was all brought about by Wayne Gretzky and those Oilers who were abusing the rules and breaking scoring records as a result. Between 1982 through 1985, the Oilers averaged 423 goals per season. No other team had ever scored 400 goals in a season before. Prior to the implementation of this rule, the players would go to the box and the game would be reduced to a 4-on-4 or a 3-on-3, giving Gretzky a lot more room out there on the ice to skate around everyone and do all the Gretzky things that would get him that GOAT status. As long as the Oilers were taking coincidental penalties, it was essentially putting Gretzky on a power play, as it just opened up the ice for way more scoring opportunities. If you've had fun so far, we recommend clicking the link on the screen to watch The Most Bizarre Careers in Hockey. One guy was a part-time farmer.